I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing is to approve the agenda. Does anyone have any questions, changes, issues on the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion by Sean Ryan, second by Amy Jurek to approve the agenda as stated. If there's no other comments or questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, agenda passes 5-0. First thing on the agenda is a public hearing on the outdoor pool, and we're going to start with a little presentation from Ken, and then we will have any questions from the council, and then we will open it up for a public hearing. So, thank you.
All right, well, we'll get going. This is not a very long presentation, but we'll provide a little bit of background information on the outdoor pool and kind of where we've been with discussions even before the indoor pool and that collaboration with the school got started. Council will remember actually back on September 8th, 2015, we had a public hearing for the future of the outdoor pool, as well as collaborating potentially on the indoor pool with the school district. That hearing followed actually, and I had it wrong in the packet, the survey was from July 2014, not July 2015. But we had that survey done in 2014, sent out to every district resident. We mailed a copy, and then we also allowed people to fill out a response online if they wanted to. We ended up getting a little over 1,000 returned, and a pretty good response rate of about 17%. So I'll go over the results of that survey and I'll compare it to the survey that I actually had put up online, more specific to the outdoor pool and the current situation today. More recently with the council, actually the last council meeting on February 5th, the council had some background information which is in the packet, and again all this information can be found on the city's website if you want to take a look for more background information. But they scheduled the public hearing, obviously for tonight's meeting, wanting the public hearing to follow that survey, which again I did have placed online, promoted it through Facebook and the city website from February 6th, so basically the day after the council meeting on the 5th. And that ran all the way through last Thursday. We closed that, and we got 429 responses to the online survey. Other background information: the school and the city do have a joint powers agreement for the operation of the outdoor pool. This also, the same agreement covers the indoor pool and summer recreation as well. But for the purposes of discussion here, we're just addressing how it relates to the outdoor pool. The city owns the pool in the facility. The school district provides all the programming and operation of that pool. Obviously, with the indoor pool opening last summer on July 1, it was apparent rather quickly that there were operational concerns with mainly staffing and finding enough lifeguards to operate both the indoor and outdoor pool, and kind of finding the right balance for that. Obviously, the newness of the indoor pool did have probably more people potentially than normal going to the indoor pool to check it out, somewhat at the expense of the outdoor pool. But funding issues have also come out of the situation of basically all of last summer in the operations. No swimming lesson revenue, and that kind of trickled down to the financial considerations we'll go into a little later in the presentation. Last fall, on October 23rd, 2017, the Joint Powers Board, which is made up of representatives from the school district and the city, did make a recommendation for the city council to consider closing the outdoor pool. Again, a lot of discussion at that time and at that meeting about staffing and the financial shortfalls of the outdoor pool operation, and then also kind of falling in line with the issues of getting the indoor pool up and running and those financial considerations as well. But at this juncture and at this time, the specific pressing deadline would be for community education needing to know if the outdoor pool will be available to them for programming and advertising within the 2018 summer community education brochure. So that's really the driving force for at least the 2018 season here tonight. A little background on the 2018 survey. So again, that was up February 6th to Thursday of last week, and we ended up having 429 people respond to that. 71% of the people that responded to the most current survey online lived in the city limits, and then 29% lived outside. Pretty similar to the results we got from the 2014 survey of 63 and 37%. 93% noted having used the outdoor pool, with 7% having noted they hadn't. That's quite a bit higher than back in 2004, when those numbers were 64% that had and 36% that had not. Not near 2014, but 2014. As far as the condition of the pool, the current survey, 40% felt the pool was in fair condition, and 36% felt it was in good condition, and 16% felt it was poor. That varied a little bit from the last time we did the survey, where 34% thought it was in fair condition, but more people back in 2014 thought the pool was in poor condition rather than in fair condition. So I think part of that might have to do with the fact that it's winter and people aren't actively going into the pool, maybe necessarily remember the condition, or maybe their opinion has changed in that, I don't know, but the general condition opinion has gone more favorable in the past 4 years. As far as using the pool, most people said they use it 1 to 2 times a month. About 22% said that. 17% said several times a week. And then following that, 14% said they used it 1 time a season. And that was somewhat in line with what happened in 2014 with the responses. About 13% said they used it 1 to 2 times a month. 10% said they used it several times a week. And 8% was once a season. So not a huge difference in those categories. For why they use the outdoor pool, and this did not change from the current survey to the one in 2014. Most people use the outdoor pool for recreational swimming. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. What had changed actually from 14 to this current survey was that people didn't note anymore that they're using it for lessons, and again, that was due to the fact that lessons moved to the indoor pool. So that was kind of a big reason to use the outdoor pool, that has moved to the indoor pool. And then finally, convenient location and sunbathing rounded out the top 3 answers for the current survey. Sunbathing did not show up on the survey in 2014 in any great numbers at all. So that was kind of the big difference there. Provide why they do not use the outdoor pool, and these didn't change at all from the 2014 survey to 2018. The number one reason being, actually most people didn't answer that question. I think they're trying to answer that they didn't have an issue with the pool, but people that did answer said it was out of date or didn't have the desired amenities, and that was pretty well in line with what we heard back in 2014 as well. And then really the big question was, do you want the outdoor pool to remain open? And we specifically worded it the existing outdoor pool. 60% with this current survey noted that they did. 29% said close it. And then the other 11% gave a text response, and I'll kind of summarize those in the next bullet point. Back in 2014, almost 50% wanted a new outdoor aquatic facility, followed by 16% that thought we should renovate and expand the current pool, maybe adding a water slide or something like that. And then 9% at that time said close the outdoor pool. So really one of the most frequent comments we got with this current survey was in regards to people want to keep the outdoor pool, but they also want it updated. It's pretty clear that people did not want to continue with the pool in the current condition and with the amenities it offers. So that was a big comment. Also, a comment that was brought up is if that can't be done, consider a splash pad at that location or another location for, again, just staying outdoors and that type of activity. Now, back in 2014, the most common requested comment was people wanted an indoor pool, which we obviously do have now. Now it's followed by a new or renovated outdoor pool. So I think it's just kind of gone to the next comment that we had heard that got the new indoor pool. So the next one in line from 14 was renovate or build a new outdoor pool, and we've heard that again with this survey. I won't go over the list of current outdoor pool issues, but there are many. I think we've talked about this before at length, so we'll kind of avoid the discussion, but we have issues with a large leak in the pool, which really is only about a $1,400 a month, or a $1,300 a season operating expense for the water that has to be put in to replace the water from that leak. It's about 4,000 gallons a day. It sounds like a lot, but it's not a huge cost. Overall, in that 3 months the pool is open. Other things, coping, brick and pork addition, paint plaguing out the pool bottom, filter issues, recirculation, valves and pump issues, those types of things. The wading pool, not with ADA compliance, and kind of on down the line, no heater for the outdoor wading pool. And then the bathhouse doesn't have ADA toilets or shower amenities. Certain codes for kind of the gang showers need to be addressed. No family changing rooms on down the line. So again, those still exist from when we did the assessment back in 2014. So one of the option considerations we had again in 2014, and you could still consider them options to a degree, cost to close the outdoor pool, right around $50,000 to $60,000, basically to shut everything down. Repairing the outdoor pool, this is just to bring everything up to code, not adding any new amenities, just to bring it up to code and make it a safe facility. We're figuring maybe $500,000 to $600,000 for that. Renovating or expanding the outdoor pool, this in the scope of the assessment was really adding a water slide and maybe turning the kiddie pool area into a very small splash pad or zero depth entry type feature. It's about 1.5 to maybe 1.7 million. Converting the pool area in its current location, maybe 600,000, just to convert that to a spray pad. There'd be no pool, just a wet deck with some spray features. And then kind of the one that most people commented on in the survey was the $4 million end up outdoor aquatic facility, which would not be able to be accommodated on the existing location that it is today, but could be looked at other locations. Some financial considerations, these are just very brief, more detailed information is in the packet. We can certainly go over that if the council or the public would like to. 2017 expenses, we had about $60,000 from the city that went into the outdoor pool. That was our staff, and then operating losses that were about $9,300 for the outdoor pool from July 16 to June 2017. I should note that it was actually roughly half the actual loss for the outdoor pool. There was actually kind of a revenue surplus from the summer rec and outdoor pool program from years prior that was used to offset that loss that we had last year. So it could be closer to maybe $20,000 for that loss for the 1 year time period if that had not happened. So for the 2018 budget, we've budgeted about $11,000 to $12,000 more. That also includes an expected operating loss, again, if the pool remained open in 2018, so we have budgeted for that. As far as the indoor pool, just as a note, as of, and you'll see this in the packet, the indoor pool as of the end of 2017, the school's accounting is experiencing a loss, an operating loss of about $195,000, and that was determined per the joint powers agreement to be split between the city and the school. We hope that doesn't turn out at the end of their fiscal year, at the end of June of 2018 here. We hope that is continually whittled down with other events and other revenue being generated at the pool, but we also have to kind of keep that in mind as the overall aquatic cost to the community. As I noted before, outdoor pool revenue is only for admissions at this point, not for lesson revenue. All those have been moved indoor. Quick note on page numbers, and if you have more questions about this, I'll defer it to the school district. We have Bryce Bachman and Janelle Kirsch here from the school to answer questions on this. But paid swimmers in 2016 was about 5,000 paid swimmers, and that was down to about 2,500 in 2017. Again, some of that obviously had to do with the newness of the indoor pool. We had some staffing issues that occurred over that time, so we don't have a full year of both the facilities operating at one time in which to compare. Per splash cost was a number that got brought up at the Joint Powers Board meeting when the recommendation to consider closing the pool was brought up. And the cost per splash for the outdoor pool is about $8.89. And you'll see a lower number here that's about $7.82 without Kids Company, and that was because Kids Company had not been paying revenue to the outdoor pool for swim days that they had every week. And that's kind of how you see the difference. If they had been paying, we obviously would have less of a per splash cost because the operation was kind of subsidizing their attendance to the pool. And then regular daily admission is $4 a person, so you can kind of see the cost differential there, obviously, from what we experienced in 2017 for the outdoor pool. So really the purpose of tonight's meeting is to gather public input on the future of the existing outdoor pool, again, owned by the city, operated by the school district, to make a final decision on the operation of the outdoor pool for minimally for 2018, so the community ed can continue with their brochure. And for when you actually open up the public hearing, I just want to make sure everybody states their name and address clearly for the record. So with that, again, we have a lot of information in the packet. So if you have specific questions, myself, Mike, Glenn on the condition of the pool, or Janelle Bryce can answer questions on the attendance and kind of the operation end of it and programming. So I'll kind of conclude my portion here and stand for any questions.
Okay. Before I open for the public hearing, anyone on the council have any questions or anything that wants to be brought up at this time?
I had one. Ken, to close the pool, you estimated would cost $47,000 to $55,000.
That was from the U.S. Aquatics facility study back in 2014. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, that was kind of just demolishing the building and
Yep.
cleaning up and filling in the pool.
Filling in the pool,
ultimately.
correct. Cleaning the site off to
Yep.
fair.
Just kind of leveling it
And is
up.
that something that would have to be done immediately, or? No.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
We'd probably have to fill the pool part in for liability reasons.
Well, that would probably be the safest, although the fencing's up there, so I guess I don't see that as being absolutely necessary. It's really, I suppose, no different than when we shut it down in fall and it sits there all winter,
Right.
half full. So,
Okay.
That was all I had.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I guess I'll open the public hearing. So if you have a comment you'd like to make, please come up to the microphone so you can be on TV and state your name and address and give us your comments.
Mayor, if I could add while we're waiting for somebody to come up, is that the governing body that currently exists that oversees both the indoor aquatics facility and the outdoor pool, as Ken alluded to or mentioned, that the school operates it. City provides a certain amount of financing, and that is that under the Joint Powers Board is we've got 3 members of the city membership in that, and that would be Maggie Bass, Sean Ryan, and Ken Ondich. And on the school side, you've got Jerry Valerius, Janelle Kirsch, and Carla Schultz, although I think Carla had to leave. So we have most all of everybody that's part of the governing body and that's involved in this process here tonight to answer any questions that you might have as well. But excuse me for interrupting Ms. Wilcox. Ms. Wilcox.
My name is Kay Wilcox, 310 First Avenue Northwest. Looks like I'm the only one at the funeral. I know there's support out there. I can't say where it is. I didn't do anything to drum it up. I just have some observations. One of the reasons was to close the pool, I think maybe stated, I watched it on television, lack of lifeguards. Well, was that poor planning? Did we not think that we would need more lifeguards? Another one was, oh, the pool is not making money anymore because the swim lessons are going over to the other side. So I think that's a little skewed picture. You know, when you hire consultants, they encourage you to build had a loss of $195,000 this year. And they also encourage you to take down what you have, and they're real nitpicky about improvements. I guess I'd just like to see what would happen if some of our local contractors went in there to see, you know, you get Fridges or some other cement contractor, what would it take to fill the crack? Cosmetic stuff was the paint and the tile. Connolly Plumbing, you know, could they do something? You know, I'm just looking at something. If I'm going to improve my home, I'm not going to get some hotsy-tots consultant to come down and tell me how to improve my home. So I'm just questioning the $500,000 to improve the pool. I think the city chooses to subsidize certain things in the city and we just assume it. The golf course being one, the park system, we have an outlay, but we don't necessarily have the income. So I'd just like to have you think about the advantage of the outdoor swim opportunity for kids versus being inside with the chemicals. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could comment on one of the things that Kate talked about as far as the outside consultant, that the outside consultant that we used is very well known in the state of Minnesota, and that's USA Aquatics, who was also used in conjunction with the architectural staff at the school on building the new indoor aquatics. And we went through a very extensive analysis, and I don't think that things, some of the things that Kate maybe touched on as far as the painting or other things, our staff has done most of those kinds of things. That you're talking some of the guttering system and a lot of the internal operations of running the pool. And so it was very extensive to try to ensure that it was ADA compliant, which we know in a number of areas throughout, as Ken mentioned, it is not compliant. So it's not leaving things undone that we think we could get done locally. That our staff, I think, is pretty good in paying attention to trying to keep things running and operating. And so they were much more extensive than kind of minimal maintenance things in doing that. And so they are very knowledgeable on the listing of things that they identified that would need work. Whether you choose to do it or not, that's the list that they see that needed to be addressed. So I just wanted to point that out, that our staff does good work in the spring and the startup, and after the pool is done, we do what we can there. And you know, it's 34 years old, and just like with anybody's house, that you have furnaces and you have hot water heaters and you have roofs and, you know, those kind of things. And there's not been a lot of maintenance monies put into this outdoor pool.
I think there's a number of outdoor pools that are far older than ours that have survived. When we built this one, we went to Goodhue. I went online. Goodhue's still open. So the Center's still open. Canyon's still open. So, you know, maybe the over the year maintenance wasn't the same.
And we're not saying that we can't keep the pool operational, but we're living on borrowed time. That and I think we've been doing that for a number of summers here recently. But the council has voted not to put any major dollars into any extensive renovations, and so our staff, Public Works, Wastewater, Parks, has done absolutely the best they can within the parameters of the financing and the funding that's been approved to operate that outdoor pool.
Okay. Any other comments? Don't be shy. Okay, I guess it doesn't look like we have any more comments, so I guess I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We got a second by Dave Bruzek. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Mayor, if I could acknowledge that depending before the council goes into discussion and in deliberation, is that it should be pointed out, and I think we would be remiss that even though we now have an indoor aquatics facility, the community efforts and the tenacity to work within the community to get this pool built 34 years ago. Mrs. Wilcox had a significant hand in involvement, and I think even some personal financial loans and other things that Kay and the group of people that she worked with, and I don't have the complete extensive story, but irrespective of what you choose to do, Mrs. Wilcox was significantly involved in enabling that asset to be built 34 years ago when there wasn't such a facility. And I'd be remiss if we lost this opportunity to at least acknowledge her for what she did, irrespective of what your decision is moving forward tonight.
Thank you.
So noted.
I would like to make one request. I would like to have the plaque that's on the pool that says the place that people built, so that doesn't go down with the bulldozer.
Okay. If the decision is to close it, we will definitely make sure you get that. But, as of right now, we have not made a decision, so.
I think we're on your way.
Any comments?
Well, could we hear from the school about what the plans are if we do leave the pool open this season for staffing?
Bryce Bachman, the aquatic manager, and so that's a good question. I went back and looked last year. We had about 28 to 30 lifeguards, and currently right now we've got about 41 on payroll. Keep in mind that they're all not actively lifeguarding. Some are at college, some are only picking up 1 or 2 shifts. And across the country, lifeguard and swim instructors are not easy to come by, West Coast, East Coast, North, South. So we're not the only place around that's having a little pickle with hiring and staff training. But right now, having more guards at this point than we did last year, that's kind of where we sit for staffing, and we'll continue to kind of run lifeguard and WSI classes as we're able to. We're looking at setting one up in March for both WSI and lifeguards. So hopefully if we can get some more staff in that class, we'll have more than that 41 that we have right now.
I got a question. Is there like a schedule that if you have 10 people swimming, you have to have 1 lifeguard? If you have 20 people, you have to have 2 lifeguards? You know, is there any state guidelines on how many people have to, or lifeguards have to be present at
Per swimmer?
Yeah.
There's nothing written that says you have to have 1 lifeguard per 30 or 40 swimmers or patrons in the pool, but like the indoor pool, we're kind of governed by what the state requires versus the amenities we have. So it's kind of a best practice from what other pools are doing for the number of guards in the structure that we have. Between 2 to 4 or 6, depending on how busy the pool is. But there isn't a hard firm, you need to have 1 lifeguard for every, 17 people or a number like that.
Isn't there a certain age requirement of a guard to be on site, Bryce?
They can be 15 to take the lifeguard class. We hire them at 16, and then the Department of Labor will require an 18-year-old in the facility when that pool is open if there are lifeguards under 18. So if we have lifeguards who are 16, 17, 18 and up, then we're all right. But if we have 16, 17-year-old lifeguards, then we have to have either an 18-year-old lifeguard or an adult who's working the concession stand front desk to keep that building open.
Okay. Is that the same for an outdoor facility also?
Yes.
Okay. So on a normal day, what would they normally staff for the outdoor pool?
We've kind of gone back and forth depending on the day. Between 4 to 6, we would kind of cut it down in the evenings when it was getting a little bit slower. And last year we were rotating the lifeguards through the front desk area selling concessions. And so now we've kind of got staff indoors and outdoors, staff who are just front desk and concession workers, and staff who are just lifeguards. There's a couple that mix in between, but depending how that plays out, we could have all lifeguards rotate through, or we could structure just a couple lifeguards on the pool deck itself, and then 1 concession stand front desk worker at the inside.
when is a good time for, if we would leave it open, when would you have the end of the season numbers to compare? So we could evaluate again if we decide to. Is September, October?
At the end of the summer season?
Yes.
So this last year when we opened, we purchased Max Galaxy, the software system. And so we've got the ability to really track who's coming in when, daily admissions, did they pay daily admission, was it a punch card, was it a membership? So we've got the ability to track that. So basically we could run it the following day if we keep up on keeping the numbers into the system. We'd probably have to do a little bit of reconciliation in checking those numbers, but we've got the ability in technology to be able to track who's coming in, and we don't check when they leave, but when they're coming into the pool.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. You know, I understand it's an emotional issue, and that a lot of people worked really hard to get that pool up and going. But this, and certainly Dave and Chuck and even Amy, I think, over the last 4 years, we've talked about this, and we would have never, or I would have never voted for 1.2 million of the city's dollars to go for that new facility if we were going to keep this open. It was the alternative because we knew we had to close it. A few years back, we had to sink $35,000 into a boiler, and then we had to build a shed essentially on the side of it to keep the chemicals so it wouldn't eat the boiler away. So it was a $50,000 investment. It's lost money every year. And now the new pool, after we've agreed to spend the taxpayers' money, and that was the direction we were going to go, now all of a sudden we're kind of backpedaling a little bit and thinking this. I understand it's an emotional issue, but I think as stewards of the taxpayer dollar, we need to make an unemotional decision, and the numbers up there just prove that it is not sustainable, and it's just throwing more money at it. I'd rather save that money and look at further down the future of doing a splash pad or something like that. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to keep it open. And now Mike has given us the numbers of what it costs the wastewater guys who go over there every day to treat it, which had not been in the budget, and that's an additional $32,000 if we tack that onto the outdoor swimming pool budget. I think we just need to make a unemotional decision about an emotional issue.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I do. I have some on the survey that was just done. In the survey, I took some offense at some of the things that were said. Specifically that the city screwed up. City staff was all wrong when we did all this. We didn't look heavily into what we should have done because everybody says, well, we want a new pool, new outdoor pool. That wasn't the case. As Ken said, the primary or one of the more frequently mentioned comments on the 2014 study was that most seem to want a new indoor complex. The other thing that bothered me about this was that it was our fault because we didn't study this enough. Well, we did. We put an awful lot of time in on looking at options, going to various sites to look at what they had. We asked staff over there, what do you like about your pool? What don't you like? What would you change? What would you recommend we do? So we really put a lot of time and effort into exploring some of the things that were ultimately incorporated. We never made a decision as to not put up a pool, splash complex, or whatever, as far as I can recall. So if we do decide to close it, I am still one that wants to do something for outdoor enthusiasts. In the responses today or this past week, One of the comments was, well, let's put an outdoor pool next to the current indoor pool. We can't do that. There isn't land there. Am I right, Jerry? It's not possible to do. We looked at that too back when. Another thing that I got out of there is you should do fundraising. Well, I'm sorry, people of New Prague, but the council's responsibility is not fundraising, nor is it the city staff's to do fundraising. We wouldn't have a pool, outdoor pool today if Kay Wilcox and many others in the community had not gone out and done it. There would be no pool. So I guess my comment is that, yes, I want to see an outdoor pool too, but how are we going to pay for it? When we looked at some of the options everybody wanted, we were looking at somewhere between $7 and $8 million. That's a lot of small change. Actually, it's not small change, it's large change. I think what we got with the new pool were things that we never would have got with an outdoor pool. We've got a lazy river that can be used anytime. One of the nice things about that, and some people call it a waste of time, not needed, it has gotten a lot of, if I'm wrong, Bryce, let me know, but it's got a lot of older citizens like myself, but I haven't been in there, that really, I'm told, like that lazy river. It is helpful. It helps a lot of people that have trouble getting around. It's a therapeutic thing. I know they're working with the hospital or with the fitness center to see if somehow that an operation there can't be worked in together. So if, and I know this is not something that's going to happen today or even within the next month, but those people that want fundraising done, I would suggest they get on the ball and start doing it. Because if I knew somebody was out there doing a lot of fundraising and they could raise somehow $500,000 before the end of the next season, I'd be willing to keep it open. Otherwise, like when I asked Glenn Stika, can we get another year out of that school? And he says, well, I interpret if you pray a lot, we might be able to, but otherwise he wouldn't guarantee anything. And I guess that's my feeling. So that's my take on this whole thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I guess I would like to make a statement, and as reading through all the comments from this survey that we've done the other day, and also the previous survey, it seems like a lot of the comments, and Ken alluded to that, were very similar. But one thing, and I don't know if anyone recalls that when we did vote to pass the indoor pool, our part of it, we kind of stipulated that we would like to see one more year of operation after the partial year to see how it did on its own. And to me, that seems like we're kind of going against that philosophy that we kind of agreed upon when we made that decision to spend the 1.2 million. So with that, regards, I think that I would feel more comfortable that we should open it for this season on its own and see what kind of use is there. I think if we didn't, we're kind of skewing the activity, because last year when the new pool opened, it's like anything else. When it's new, everyone will go there and try it out. Well, now people have all tried it out. So this year, are you going to have people use an indoor facility, or are they going to say, you know what, if the outdoor pool's closed, we're going to go to Northfield, Faribault, Shakopee. We don't know that, and I think that would leave ourselves open to not really knowing if we made the correct decision, in my mind. But that's the statement I'd like to make.
I think, in my opinion, looking at the financial numbers, it's almost why leave it open? But then looking at it, and I remember we had that discussion about I'd like to see it a whole season. We have it in the budget this year already. Because the city does provide services, and we all know that a outdoor pool in any state, especially up north, we never make money. It's always a service that's provided. And so I think one more year, I know there's a lot of issues last year, but that's with anything new, with the indoor, outdoor staffing. I'd like to see what it really is like for a whole season when we're all settled in, and see what the service can be, especially if we want to think about for the future. I mean, what if we find out this season there still isn't much use? Well, then how is that going to affect our planning for what we should do in the future for an outdoor facility if it's still not going to be used? So I'd be in favor of, since we already have it in the budget this year, to see what it's like for one more year.
Being relatively new on the council, of course, I wasn't privy to some of those previous conversations prior to funding the indoor facility. And I do understand that there was a lot of fundraising and effort put in to build the outdoor pool. And it was, I'm sure, quite a lovely amenity for the city of New Prague at that time. And to Amy, to your point, yes, we have the money in the budget to operate the pool for one more season. I can certainly understand wanting to see what the numbers are going to be, the attendance numbers may be, but that still leaves us with what do we do next when we realize that the pool requires an enormous amount of money to even just bring it up to snuff, let alone having a facility that can be appreciated in the future. I'm still torn on closing it or keeping it open. I think I can probably swing either way quite easily. We do have the money in the budget to keep it open one more season, and maybe it is worthwhile to have it open one more season just to see what the attendance is, and the fact that we do have software that can track attendance, and then make a decision based on another season. It's a difficult decision.
The other part I question too is we asked for a survey, and I think we got a pretty good response for the short time that it was out there. And if we listen to those people in the survey, I feel better leaving it over 1 year and not making a quick decision. Even financially, we know it's probably not the best decision, but it's a service. And to see how the future, I mean, if this really gets a lot of use, well then, yes, we know it's a limited life, so what's going to be the next step? Do we look at an outdoor splash pad, or, but if it gets no use and this still is the indoor is the highest use, then we sort of have an answer about the future of an outdoor facility.
I'm just not willing to gamble another $50,000, $70,000, especially when the numbers on the new pool are not coming in as we expected. And I don't think, as of right now, with negative $195,000, granted that's going to change somewhat, but can you tell me, Mike, what we had budgeted for potential loss that we might be able to
You mean in 2018?
in 2018 that we're on the hook for? Because we're on the hook for half of the operational expense. It's a really expensive experiment when we really have fantastic data already. It's my personal feeling.
Well, the only areas that, short of dipping into our fund balance, is you've got about 39,000 under the indoor aquatics. If you remember, that was our best guess with all the planning that went on, that we have plugged in, that we're on the the hook to be billed for this past year. The only other additional dollars that the council would have available to them is what's been budgeted under the contingency, which totals about $50,000. So those are the only two budgeted items that you'd be able to get your hands on. The other part would just be taken from fund balance.
That's fine. I'd also like to note that the Joint Powers Committee voted twice with recommending to council that we close the outdoor pool. And that hasn't been brought up again yet.
Okay, any other comments? Mike, that 39,000 I'm looking at, that does not include the 11,000, does it?
No, it does not include the 11 under the outdoor pool, that if you take a look at the package.
Because we actually put that to 21,000, correct?
Correct, we added 10,000 on top of that to deal with the likelihood of an additional operating loss in the outdoor pool based on the way that the school had accounted for it, and it was moving the swimming lesson revenues to the indoor pool. That was kind of what we ended up this last year.
So in theory, we really have $110,000 booked somewhere with our contingency plus the 39 plus the 21
Well, I think Sean's question was
to handle both situations.
both outdoor and indoor.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we could find 100,000 somewhere, but still, do we want to spend that for a test? And I don't know if that's, or an experiment to see if there's enough. I know it's an emotional issue, I just feel like we need to make a decision on it. I don't think it's a rash decision at all. We've talked about it for 4 years, and you know, I know that it had been brought up in the past to wait till some of the full year numbers had come in, but that was late in the process. There was a time before that when we were already moving forward where it seemed like this council, and Amy, I'm not sure if you were on at that time or not, but that the council was moving towards the pool was nickel and diming us, the outdoor pool was nickel and diming us, that it didn't have a future, and that we were going to sink our money, which turned out to be 1.2 million of the taxpayers' money, into a brand new indoor facility. And to pull resources for the outdoor pool, we're not even sure if we can staff it yet, but which might even be another issue. And if that's the case, the numbers surely aren't going to come in if there isn't lifeguards available for that. Because Bryce, if I'm not mistaken, are you going to give priority for lifeguard assignment to the indoor pool because of swimming lessons and everything else? Have you thought about that?
Well, if we were running swimming lessons inside, we would have to staff that so those kids were safe
Right.
during that lesson time frame.
Right. Outside of that, though, if you only have 10 people to choose from, or 4 people to choose from, I mean, are you going to give preference to the indoor pool over the outdoor pool? You're certainly not going to close the indoor pool, would be my guess, because of lack of lifeguards. It would be that you'd close the outdoor pool. Is that a fair assumption?
Well, that would probably be a good question we'd bring back to the joint powers prior to the summer session starting on what, if that of course were to happen, what would the decision from that board be?
Okay. Jerry, do you want to speak? You're here tonight. Do you want to speak on what your feeling would be on that?
I think Bryce is pretty well covered it for
Okay.
the school district.
Okay. Just another consideration. All right, I'm done. I think
Okay, any other comments? I guess I'll look for a motion either way.
I'll make a motion to keep the pool open 1 more year, but, and there's a but to this, if we have any kind of a costly breakdown, that pool is closed permanently.
Do you want to set an amount? What's a good amount? 20,000?
I don't know. Do you have any recommendations, 25K?
Will likely beyond any maintenance dollars that we would normally spend. If we would encounter something major, we're back before the council talking about what the alternatives and the cost is. So
Okay.
I don't think you have to set a limit tonight
Right.
to address it.
Okay.
Because there's no sense trying to outguess what may or may not happen. Your motion is that you're concerned about a significant investment in the pool. And I think we've got a pretty good staff with Led's leadership that can tell whether that's something minor or whether it's major and whether it should be a financial consideration by the council.
That sounds fine with me.
So we're not gonna have a limit tonight.
No,
No.
leave it up to.
I guess I'm trying to tell you that, you know, if we're something in the manageable range that we have within the budget, that we're in that line. If we're significantly up at a, 15, 20, 25,000 or something major of that nature, we're back before the council. What do you want to do?
I think it's something we can judge when something happens and then bring it to your attention. If it's a $200 prop for a pump, that's normal maintenance. Is 25,000 the number? I don't know. If it comes to something, I think when we're going, wow, I don't know that I'd fix this, then it needs to come, my recommendation would be to bring it to your attention.
I think we
And
have
then
a
a
sense
decision's
of
made.
I think we have a sense of the council's sentiment in dealing with this, that we're not just going to go willy-nilly spend a bunch of money on major repairs without bringing it back before you, so you can make that choice.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay, so we have a motion.
I'll second.
We got a second. All in favor of keeping the pool open for one more year unless a major repair is required, and it'll come back to council for a later decision at that time? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes 3-2.
Can we put it on like the second council meeting in September to start talking about it already, so before budget season, and so we can start planning for the next season?
I think we can.
Okay.
I would like to make one more request. That's to those people who filled out the survey and said you ought to do some fundraising. I'd like somebody out there in the general public to start doing that. They want an outdoor pool, somebody's got to pay for it. And I don't know if this council can pay for what everybody wanted in that survey, because it went sky high. So, and I'm not looking at you, Kay. I don't expect you to do that.
Jerry already did, and I went, no.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, Jim, I think you're going to do the introduction.
Honorable Mayor and Council, tonight we have an opportunity to hear from a commander from the Southwest Metro Drug Task Force regarding what they've been doing in the last year, some of the trends and things that they've seen. And we've been a member of the Southwest Metro Drug Task Force for almost 3 years. It was in 15 we started with them. Currently we pay about $4,200 for the year for dues towards that, and then that all the members of that drug task force have a board where decisions are made, and Jason Harris is the commander for the task force, and he is the manager of the task force. Then he manages the agents along with the budget work for that. After Jason presents, we'll have the Cannon River Drug and Violent Offender Task Force. That we started, was a member in 2017, so we are on our second year with that. When I brought it to the council about joining, Leesore County wanted to expand their investigative staff to become a member with, join with Rice County's task force, the Cannon River Drug and Violent Offender Task Force. At that time, they put an agent on, and we began with that in 2017. Tonight we have Agent O'Brien here to talk a little bit about that drug task force and what they're seeing also.
Working at it.
You're there. With that, I would, maybe not.
Just quit working.
Probably tired.
So you want the video?
Yeah. We'll start off with the Southwest Metro Drug Task Force.
Thank you, Chief.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. When I was asked to do this, I was very eager to say yes. Any opportunity that I can get people to see some of the stuff that I see and be appreciative of your partnership with our task force.
Drugs is a team sport.
Sorry.
To give a little brief about this task force is, one thing is fighting drugs is a team sport, but the motto is pretty self-explanatory. We just can't do it on
This is the
ourselves.
model of the Southwest
And
Metro
I've had
Drug
a
Task Force.
couple of opportunities to work with a couple of different people that had very meaningful messages. So at that cue, maybe we could get going.
All right, we'll get it going here.
Thank you.
Fighting drugs is a team sport. This is the model of the Southwest Metro Drug Task Force. Our task force is comprised of Carver, McLeod, Scott, and a small portion of Hennepin County, which covers 1,200 square miles with a population of approximately 270,000 people. One commander and 5 agents work collaboratively with local, state, and federal agencies and communities to reduce the negative impact drugs can have on family, friends, schools, and our society. Our partnerships are essential in combating drugs. Success will increase with the involvement of the citizens in their community. The fight against drugs may seem like a lofty goal, but through enforcement, education, and partnering with multiple different agencies and citizens, we hope to minimize the exposure to drugs, reducing those from entering the experimental phase while decreasing the number of addicts. Don't ever think this can't happen to you. Judge Rex Stacy, who lives and works in our service area, tells a story we can all be affected intimately by drugs.
About this, and this is a story I've shared with a lot of addicts and their parents, because not many people know what happens to somebody when they overdose on heroin. It's not a pretty sight. Heroin users might have seen it from time to time. They might have overdosed from time to time. So this particular young lady was taken off the machines and sent to a private room where oddly enough, Thanksgiving, she quit breathing. Her father was with her. So that can be a powerful story, because that little girl was my daughter.
To gain a better understanding of the importance of teamwork, I was able to speak with 2 local NBA professional athletes. Randy Brewer, drafted in the first round of the 1983 draft and 18th overall, recently was one of 9 Minnesota Golden Gopher basketball players ever to have their jersey retired. He gives us his perspective on teamwork.
So teamwork is having everybody working hard, playing hard together, and basically understanding what we're all going to be doing.
Now we hear from Cole Aldridge, drafted in the first round of the 2010 draft and 11th overall, currently playing with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I think the biggest thing is when you have, neighborhoods and cities and, towns and all that collectively, it's holding each other responsible. It's saying, as a neighborhood, if we have this problem in our neighborhood, collectively coming together and saying, we don't want anything a part of that. We don't want that in our neighborhood.
We have seen that drugs can affect anyone and the importance of working together on many different levels. The Southwest Metro Drug Task Force is asking the public, in partnering with law enforcement,
in fighting drugs. When you see suspicious drug activity, call 911. Get your local law enforcement to investigate it immediately. Any and all information can come to us through a downloadable app, Tip 411, or emailing Southwest Metro Drug Task Force at co.scott.m.us. Together, we will make a difference. Fighting drugs is a team sport.
And that last portion is all the agencies who contribute to our task force to make a difference on drugs in our communities. Pretty much the focus of our task force is three things. Obviously enforcement, right? But let's not forget the people involved. The majority of the people that we deal with are addicts, and it's to get them the help that they need. So a lot of what we do, I've mentioned it in the video, was the educational component of it, is to deter people from entering that arena so they don't get in that experimental phase. Because we never know how long that experimental phase will be. And if they dip into that experimental phase, we don't know at what point they become the addict. Where, as the video said too, is where they become a burden on our families and our communities. And then there's the treatment, the rehabilitation. A lot of the people that we deal with are on probation. And even through our enforcement, we don't lose sight of how much help these people need. Our partnerships, the task force in itself can't exist without our local police departments, without our federal and state agencies. There's just simply not enough of us. In the video itself, it says we literally cover 1,200 square miles, and we're getting to the point where we're getting to the personnel to work more operations and do more search warrants to get the drugs before they actually land even in your community. The other part about educational, that video was displayed in our presentations. We reached just short of 1,000 people we presented to in 2017. And we every quarter we do tips. We call them little articles that we send out to our contributing agencies, board members, and they're called At a Glance. What are we seeing in our streets to keep everybody informed of what we're seeing? Because drug trends change. And it's always, unfortunately, in my career, I see it very reactive. We're always reactive to what we're seeing on the streets. And education is the most proactive thing we can offer. What are we seeing in our service area? Meth in itself, I think in 2016 we were about 4 pounds of meth that we had seized and purchased. I think 2015 was about 4 pounds. 2017, I think we were just shy of 40 pounds. The methamphetamines is still on the rise, sadly enough. And the more we are able to get, the more opportunity will not land in the communities that we serve. Heroin is not big on volume, but it's big on lethality. I have worked, and our team has worked with cases with New Prague in follow-ups. And that seems to be a consistent trend. Of the reports that I see, 2018 is still increasing. Marijuana, I look at, I see what people think of marijuana. I hear what media thinks of marijuana. I do not share that same sentiment. I think marijuana is, unfortunately, reduced. I think tobacco is viewed sometimes worse than marijuana. Matter of fact, I think there's statistics out there that our young adults feel that marijuana is not that bad. But what marijuana is doing is getting them a drug-seeking behavior. They're looking for something. Well, that should be a red flag where we should intervene. And as much marijuana as I can get off the streets, I'm hoping that a young adult does not experiment with this marijuana and get them into an arena where they're going to make a bad decision. It is a gateway drug. To actually understand what that is, it's getting them to a place where, with people potentially, that are not just doing marijuana. They are being offered other things with it. Of recent, we had a seizure of, it was about 225 pounds of marijuana with about 50 to 60 pounds of edible gummies. To look at gummies, I went to Sam's Club to get vitamins for my kid. I could not see the difference between edible vitamins and the THC gummy concentrates that we seized. Just something that I wanted to share as far as my perception of marijuana. And unfortunately, I get a front row seat of behind the scenes of what I've done forums, meetings with recovering addicts. And one of the common things that they do say is, I wish somebody would have intervened when I was using marijuana. One of our goals, yes, to do very intensive drug investigations, but nonetheless is giving the people the help that they need. That will be a focus, and that will be continuing a focus of our task force. And I also want to thank you for your participation in our task force. There's 21 communities that contribute money for us to accomplish what we do. The annual report is free for your liking. And any questions, I'll open it up if you have any questions for me.
Okay. Anyone have any comments or questions?
I can't think of a question. I do appreciate your coming to us, and I appreciate your viewpoint on marijuana. It mimics mine. So, when I was in school at the U, I never tried smoking marijuana, but we had a couple of guys in the frat that did. And so I was subjected to secondhand marijuana smoke, if you like, and I didn't like it very much. Maybe that kept me away from it, but I agree with you, it's a gateway drug. Thank you, Jason.
Okay.
More than welcome.
Yes, appreciate your time coming out here today, and it was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Appreciate you having me here today to talk a little bit about our drug task force. Like Chief Garay said, this is our first full year. In April, I'll be on the task force for a year and go through the Seward County. And with your help, we were able to add an agent to the already Cannon River Drug and Violent Offender Task Force. We're a joint agency now with Rice County. They have one agent on. Faribault Police Department has 2 agents, including the commander, and then Northfield also has an agent. So I brought 2 of the agents with me today. We usually do a little presentation, so we did bring some items along of some of the things that we seize at search warrants and some of the types of drugs that we seize at search warrants that we get in our operations, if you guys are interested in seeing some of that. But, over the past year, I've worked with LeSueur County here for now about 13 years. I've been on patrol for the last 9, and then this last year joined the drug task force. And I've seen, before we had a task force, a lot of the drugs issues that we had in our county. And now that we were able to join them, we're able to combat those a lot more. But a lot of the things that we're seeing, as like Jay said, we're seeing a lot of meth in the area. It's very easy to get. Another thing is, like you talked about the marijuana, the meth and the marijuana kind of go hand in hand here. So we've had a few cases. We're seeing a little bit more cocaine in our area as well. Last year, we had, as a county, like 4 open cases from our investigators. And now with the Drug Task Force, last year we opened 137 cases in our area. The drugs are local, as well as in Rice County, as well as going up into the cities. We're trying to take out mid to upper level dealers. And then for the users, like Jay said, trying to get them help with drug court or any other treatments that we can get them. So, do you guys want to bring up some of the items that we're seeing? You guys care to take a look at some of the stuff that we're collecting at these search points?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to state that these gentlemen also came to, about a year ago, the LeSueur County officials meeting and did show us the stuff, and it was very interesting, and it was really quite eye-opening. But yeah, more than welcome.
All right. Here's meth. We're seeing a lot of meth in the area. So we'll leave those back after.
Is this the crystal meth that talk about?
Yeah, that would be the crystal methamphetamine, yeah.
And these were from New Prague arrests, or these are?
These are just samples that we take,
Okay.
and that we use for presentations. I'll pass around some cocaine here. Bindle.
I just want to make another comment. At our last LeSueur County meeting, Sheriff Mason divulged a lot of the statistics of what your task force has been doing, and then actually, and it's in our report here about actually what's happening in New Prague itself, and it was very eye-opening.
Yeah, last year we did a search warrant here in town at one of the apartment buildings and found something that we don't find very often. I think there was only a handful of meth labs found in the state last year, and actually one of them ended up being in New Prague. So. This is some heroin. We are seeing a lot more heroin in our area. A lot of it's coming out of the Chicago area and then brought up to Minneapolis and then distributed back into our communities. So we have some active open investigations on some people that are dealing in our area as well. So.
That would be, what, melted down in a spoon and then injected? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a case? Bring that up there. So this would be crack cocaine right here. People use cocaine and mix it together, heat it up, and then that's the rock form that'll come out of there.
Looks like the heroin.
Yep. Yeah, once they cut it down. This is the black tar heroin. We don't see a whole lot of that anymore. There's brown heroin and then the black tar heroin. So this will be the actual powdered cocaine.
As far as the heroin, like you discussed, typically you'd see like on a spoon like that, like a filter, and they use that, and then a lot of people shoot it up, inject it. But you can use all these drugs pretty much, smoke it, snort it, eat it. Almost every people use drugs different ways, so a lot of different ways. As far as like meth, typically you smoke it, they call it like a bubble, and usually it's white when you have used it, there's residue in it. A lot of people snort and eat methamphetamine as well, and also inject it. Typically, you'll see a lot of these common things like the scales, the grinders, that's for like marijuana. These bags are typically what things are packaged in as far as like drugs. But a lot of these are pipes, tubes they snort. That's like a dugout for marijuana. Razor blades, mirrors for like cocaine, they make lines. A lot of people crush pills also. But these are some of the things that we kind of see in average. Really, that's what we do every day. So. Then also, we also have a case here that a lot of things today are made. People hide drugs also. So these are a lot of common things that we see. They look like everyday things, but people can hide actual substances inside of them. It's like water bottles, pop cans, WD-40 cans. Very common. Marijuana wax, we see more of that. It's usually typically in these rubber containers, the multicolored ones, and people put that in there. So these are just some of the things we've seen. A lot of these we find on the street as well. So.
And there's some ecstasy pills too. We're not seeing a whole lot of ecstasy anymore, but it is still it's more of your rave drug or younger crowd.
So the stamps on it, there's like different stamps or
Yeah,
whatever.
they actually
that?
use the stamps for marketing.
But it's all the same, it's the same chemical or?
When people make it, it depends on whoever's making it. They can put different chemicals in there. And right now we're having some issues with that too, especially in heroin and some other things. People are using cutting agents and they're putting in fentanyl and carfentanil, which is killing people on the spot actually. It can even absorb through your skin. So that's a big issue. It's a safety issue for us as well, handling it, and then especially for the users, They can have their typical batch of whatever they use, and then they'll overdose with it. So he explained a little bit about the opioids problem. And same with hydrocodone and oxy. We're seeing a lot of that with the kids too, of getting their hands on a lot of pills. Do you guys have any questions for me or anything? Or anything that you want to know the way the treaties are working? How things are used or anything else?
So obviously you got your task force. Now, I assume that some of you are undercover and I guess maybe explain the process of how, you may hear through the grapevine that there's something going on. So how does the process work to get to?
There's a lot of different ways that we can do things. One thing that we do is search warrants. If we can get tips from the public or the police departments can give us enough tips and we can find a way to write a search warrant to get into that house, and then we can go into that house and see what we can find. So a lot of citizen complaints, people may think that they're pointless, but it really does help us build a case on some of these people. So we also do operations where we work with informants, people that have been arrested for drug possessions or sales, and we work with those people to get higher level drug dealers. So our focus is if we can cut the higher dealers out, then the users, it'll help the users because then they won't be able to get it. So we also work in undercover capacities. We all actually do that. So we'll actually get in vehicles, make contact with these people, and then just go buy from them directly. So those are some of the ways that we can do things.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Good.
Again, I really do appreciate everything. It really helps us, your support, and all of these as well. So appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much.
Ken, do you want to do this now? If you don't mind, I have some slides that are things I took off the internet that will show you some of the effects of meth. I've seen a lot of this, but none of these are my pictures, so you're gonna have to bear with me. Try to explain what some of this is. Those gentlemen probably have seen similar cases. They're mixed up, Kevin, so. What you're seeing here is a woman who started on meth in '98. When you see her there in 2002, was at a point when the police, these are all police records that you're seeing individuals. what happens to these individuals is the blood supply is compromised. They start vasoconstricting, and so their faces, the rest of their body is compromised in getting oxygen, metabolites into the various cells. And so they develop sores on their face. In some cases, they have deep sores, and there's some you're going to see that are, skip that one for now. This one is a period of 3 years. The same individuals. The woman on the right, when I first saw this, I thought, well, this is not meth. This looks like someone who had a severe burn and had grafts put on it. Well, it's not. This is somewhat what the skin looks like from individuals that have been picking at their sores. Sores break open pretty soon. The skin will heal and it's further break open. What happens, I'm told, is that these individuals feel like there's bugs crawling underneath their skin. And so they're constantly try to scrape it away, and ultimately you have something like this forming. I've seen this patient, not her, but I've seen another patient in my practice that quite by accident I happened to see her side. Skin after meth has been taken for I don't know how long. In some cases it's only a year. Other cases, depending upon the quantity and the type, it might be 2, 3, 4 years. But the skin loses its blood supply, becomes very leathery, and looks grayish or even brownish, and is like hardened leather. Go ahead. Here's an individual, another meth addict. On the lower right, I apologize, these were taken shortly after that individual had all of his upper teeth and a few of the lower teeth fully extracted. What you're seeing on the lower right and lower left is what happens when they smoke meth. Excuse me. The meth is an acid, as you might guess from what goes into it. But it dissolves the enamel. And so what you're seeing on most of those teeth now is a little bit of enamel covering the dent underlying tooth structure. So there isn't much hope for most people that suffer from meth mouth. Most of them wind up with dentures, full dentures, because the teeth rot from the outside in and the inside out. Because once the blood supply is compromised, the teeth do not get any nourishment from inside, and so they start rotting, decaying from the inside out. Here's another case more commonly seen than what you saw on the previous slide. Again, what you're seeing is the enamel is eroded. You're getting destruction on the inside. Some teeth are bombed out to the gum line. You can fix these, but it's primarily a lost cause. What's going to happen is eventually they're going to rot out and they'll have to be extracted. This is something they call metamorphosis. If you start on the left and go to the right, what you see is deterioration over a period of time. The two on the right, what's happened in these two individuals, the individual probably was, not two individuals, the two films of the same person, is that this individual was probably taking meth continuously to keep a 12-hour high. What happens over time is as the body uses up all of its fat cells, they start eating away at the muscle tissues. And so now their cheeks are caved in. That's it.
I might have skipped a couple here.
Yeah, I had to go by one. This one, again, you can see the age over 5 years. The last slide, the biggest, or the last film, biggest on the screen, is probably close to her end. She doesn't look too healthy anymore. The skin is turning that brownish, almost grayish color. It's another one that you see, the same individual. Again, this was arrest photos reflecting her meth use. And I think this was probably the first one we had up there. So that's basically, I just happened to be reading Jim's article, and I thought, meth, no, I should be able to get some pictures. So I went online and got some.
Thank you. Some of those pictures remind me I have to go to the dentist now. It's been a year. Okay, next on the agenda, Mike, are you going to take this or Ken?
No, I'll take this one.
Okay.
This is an agreement with MnDOT. It's an agency agreement for federal participation in construction projects. We're anticipating as we move forward to our 2020 project that with the grant funds that we have in hand with them and monies that they likely will bring to the project, MnDOT sent us this updated agreement. Last one was executed in or about 2003, so it's a modern, up-to-date agreement and sets forth the terms intended to cover projects that were awarded at least until the next agreement comes by. We had a review by the City Attorney's Office, and he's recommending approval by the Council.
Okay. What's the term on this agreement?
There is no term, it
Okay.
just stays in place until such time as it gets changed later on. Like
Okay.
I said, the last one was about 2003 from what we could find, and so, you know, it's 15 years old. It's not like we receive a lot of dollars every year on federal participation in construction, but this is looking ahead to what we've got coming here in 2020.
Okay. Any questions? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to have MnDOT be our agent with the federal government.
Second.
Second by Amy Jurek. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Ken, are you taking the mini Pike? I assume you demoed it?
I did not demo it, no. I'll do that. Even in my younger days, I did not demo the equipment that we have here. No, so as the council's aware, for the 2018 budget, we had $32,000 budgeted for a mini half pipe to be added on the existing skate park pad at the Siding Hill Skate Park. If you take a look at the screen in the overhead, kind of the lightish gray on the south side or lower right-hand portion of the picture there, that is a mini half pipe. It's 4 feet tall, which maintains us at the tier 1 level, which means no additional insurance premium for this equipment like we have out there already today, and 32 feet long. And there used to be a lot of companies that sold this equipment out there, and there are very few remaining. I actually contacted Spawn Ranch Skate Parks, which bought out True Ride, where we bought our equipment from, which was a Duluth, Minnesota company. They indicated they're based out of California now, and they no longer were willing to provide a quote for the equipment. They still sell some of the components and things like that, but would not provide a quote and wanted us to look at a concrete new skate park. And I said, no, thank you. We're on a budget here. We've got other equipment that's held up really well, so no, thank you. They referenced taking a look at American Ramp Company, who we already were talking to for a quote. And then another one was Landscape Structures, which is a company based out of Delano, Minnesota. And they just recently stopped selling skateboard equipment. So that kind of left us with American Ramp Company is the only company for the matching equipment that we have here. It's a wood substrate with a skate light surface on it, which is kind of that lighter colored tan. It's held up really well. We've had that equipment up there since 2006, so we're going on 12 years, and really haven't had any problems with it other than minor graffiti, which cleans it really well off it. So this would match that. Like I said, normally we'd like 2 quotes for the same equipment, but we just couldn't get that here. But regardless, we're very happy with the quote from American Ramp Company for the skate park mini half pipe. They came in at a little over $28,000, which is almost $4,000 under a budget amount. They had good references. They provide a good product. Like I say, even Spawn Ranch recommended we contact them, which is a good vote of confidence from a competing company. Was planning to have this reviewed by the park board before coming in here tonight, but we did not have a quorum last week. We had a bit of the flu going around, so we did not have a quorum, but I was informed that the quote would have still been good, but we would have missed probably about 6 to 8 weeks in their construction time period if we would have waited to bring this forward. So I believe that the park board would have recommended approval, and so we get on the schedule, I would like you to consider a motion to purchase based on this quote from American Ramp Company. We could get this installed by May and be up and running.
Okay.
So Ken, this looks an awful lot like the ski ramps that they had at the,
Very similar to
Yeah.
the snowboard pipe. Yep.
so can we increase the height on this and then have our own Winter Olympics?
Only if you go down first, David.
I want to kill myself, I'd do it.
Kids have been begging for this literally from before we ever built the skate park, so still a lot of use up there. I think it'll
Oh, yeah.
be very, very well received. So they've been very respectful of the equipment.
Yeah, last summer I was by the skate park and there were some kids using the park, and I went over and introduced myself as a member of the park board and asked if you could have anything, what would you like? And the first thing out of their mouths was a mini half pipe. Of course I had some other suggestions for other things too, but this was the first one.
Good.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And the other important part to note about this, as Ken said, is that as we attempt to ensure this with the League of Minnesota Cities, is we have to keep it at a certain level versus going to a higher level of insurance and having to staff it and to enclose it and have it be more regulated. So this is as far as we can go to keep it open and accessible without incurring any of those kinds of costs.
4 feet's bigger than you think when you actually get up there.
How big was the park board budget this year? I can't recall.
It wasn't much over. I think it was another $2,000 above this 32, so 34. This budget for the park board.
Okay. Any other questions? Guess I'll look for a motion to approve the purchase.
So moved.
I'll second.
I got a motion by Dave Bruzek, second by Maggie Bass to approve the bid for the purchase of the mini half party. If there's no other questions or comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, I think you said you were going to take this.
I am. Patty's unable to be here tonight, and if it was her recommendation and giving you the Patty version, it'd be a motion to approve both resolutions A and B.
I like it.
What more can I say?
It's just basically cleaning up some audit stuff to move things around to the proper accounts, correct?
Yeah, in the first resolution, as she says, it's a transfer and closure of special revenue funds, and then the other one is a transfer and closure of a specific debt service fund. If you remember when we did the budgeting together, is we've gotten monies out of a couple of grant funds that we moved into some project funds, and we did that by way of our budgeting with the special revenue fund. The small cities granted $300,000. We moved into the 2016 small cities project, and on the other one, we took the final dollar amounts of the Minnesota the MIF fund grant funds at just under $478,000, and moved that into the 2017 small cities development program. So those we went through, and I think you're familiar with both of those. The last one is Fund 389, which is the 2006 D refunding. All the debt service payments have been made, both principal and interest, And so there is a remaining balance of a little over $18,000. And normally it's been the council's past practice that any remaining funds out of the funds, on the debt service funds, that they get transferred into Fund 499. Next part with the amendments to the general fund budget, as I'm here alluded to, are kind of driven by auditing purposes a little bit as we try to account for the contribution of the $1.1 million to the school district for the zero depth pool that was done in conjunction with the school pool, as well as the purchase of the equipment for that, as well as essentially moving the accounting of what was picked up under capital project funds that, per Patty's explanation to me, is that we're having to move that back into the general fund because we've created the indoor aquatics facility piece within the general fund. When we do a capital projects fund, that's just the accounting of the construction of the dollars that go somewhere. She's moving it back in here to account for the depreciation of both the asset of the building that was built and the equipment that was purchased, the boga boards, the climbing wall, the bikes, the log roll, all of that specialized equipment that you agreed to purchase in addition to the contribution. All of that's coming back into the general fund and accounted for so that her and the auditors can deal with that as a recreational piece. So in doing that, we amended on the revenues, the building permits. Ken had a good year. In fact, it was the second busiest year ever, so we amended building permits, accounted for the transfer back in for the equipment and the building piece, and then we amended the expenses associated with all those different line items. And then the last piece she did was accounting for the transfer that you were making a contribution to the baseball fund out of the parks budget and the council's contingency fund, and so those funds are transferred from the general fund as a transfer out to the Memorial Park Baseball Capital Projects Fund. So it's really all year-end accounting changes is what's occurring there. So what she's asking for is based on those actions would be the adoption of the resolution pertaining to the transfer and closures of the special revenue funds, and the transfer and closure of the debt service fund is all contained within the one resolution. And then the second one is the amendments to the City of New Prague's 2017 general fund in the second resolution. So you can choose to act on them independently, or you could choose to adopt them both at the same time.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, I guess I'm going to make a motion to approve both A and B, the resolution for transfer of the closure of special revenue funds and debt service fund, and the resolution amending the City of New Prague 2000 general fund as recommended by Patty and our outside auditing firm.
Second.
I got a second by Sean Ryan. There's no other comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Good. Consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions, corrections, additions? Anything, comments on anything in the consent agenda items? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Dave Brusick. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Now we're at miscellaneous. Patrick, you start us, anything? All right, Mitch? You've been doing a great job again, Mitch. Appreciate it. Jim?
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you again for inviting those two task force to the meeting. It's good to hear some of the stories and the money that we allocate for this is well used. So thank you again.
It is, yeah, the networking that happens, I don't think they went into it in depth at all, but our officers are always calling both directions, giving them intel of what we learn. Today, Leesore County called us and let us know what they've been working on, or people of interest anyway. So it's a back and forth networking that happens.
Thank you. Glenn,
I have nothing.
you got nothing?
I have nothing.
How's that baseball field going?
It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Ken?
Nothing.
Mike?
I have none.
Barb?
Nothing.
Sean?
I just want to ask Mike if we made any progress on their outstanding city.
Not enough to bring you a recommendation tonight.
Okay, what, how about time frame wise?
That's difficult to answer.
Do we, I don't know if you need direction from the board to get that done, if I should ask the board to do that, or if it's...
Well, we pulled together all the information for the council to have the meeting that you wanted to have to talk about priorities and projects and that. And so maybe that would be one that we put on that list with all the other ones and see how it fares out with the prioritization by the council.
When is that going to be?
We're ready to have that as soon as the council would like to.
Okay. Should we discuss that?
Can I speak to this?
Sure.
Yeah.
I was a little bit upset, Sean, at the last meeting. This subject has not been approved by the council that I'm aware of. It's been brought to you, brought up by you to Mike, with us sitting here listening to you talk about this thing. I was upset because, in my opinion, according to the Home Rule Charter, our dealings with city are to guide Mike in what we want done. But dealings with the employees, dealings with policy, and this policy change, if there is to be one, is not an easy thing to do. For Mike to have to do this, it is a rather huge undertaking. Requires, from what little I know, it requires surveying surrounding communities to see what their policies are. It requires quite possibly something like a, what's the word they use? Comp worth study. So it's a lot of work for Mike to do this. I was upset because, to me, this is infringing on the administration. I didn't know if I was right, so I decided I'm going to keep my mouth shut for the meeting. But I called Scott Riggs. Those in the audience that are in the listening to us by internet or whatever, Scott Riggs is our city attorney. He indicated that I'm right. This is not something that has come from the council. It is something that one individual primarily took upon himself to bring forth on some of the workers. I do not feel that it is fair to dump this on Mike unless the whole council feels that it is appropriate. I, for one, do not. I guess, having said that, I sort of wonder what the other council members might say to it.
Well, if you remember, Dave, about 3 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, Councilmember Scripture brought something to Mike in regards to a payment study in very much the similar manner. And you're absolutely right. I think at this point, I'm looking for some council feedback, because I've asked Mike on behalf of a city worker, but also a voter within, several voters within this city, whom I represent, and I think it is well within my right to ask a question about it. Mike did some due diligence, and for a lot of different reasons, it has sat here and we have not made a decision for over a year. I'm not trying to micromanage this. I want to get it out in front of the council. I've been very honest with the city workers that I've talked to, that I represent as residents of this city, and told them I'm just one voice. You're going to have to sell this to 3 other people in order for it to pass. I tried to inform you on it. I wanted to get all the information so we could bring it to you. So I'm not jumping over, and this isn't just something that I'm trying to steamroll down. I wanted to get all the information so we can get movement on it and get a council vote. It's very simple, and it's gone on and on and on and on and on. So if you want, I can put it on the schedule on the next agenda, and I can bring those workers in here because they want to address, so you can get the full story and hear their side of the story. It all started because I heard a rumor that there was a union rep in town, and I thought the last thing we want to do is have another union that we have to negotiate with the street and the office and the wastewater plant. I think everything's worked really good here in New Prague without a union. So that was it. Now, you've made a huge assumption that I'm trying to steamroll
I never
something.
said you were trying to steamroll it.
All right.
I'm indicating that this is up to administration and employees. It has nothing to do with the council. What I think you
You're
should
wrong.
do.
I don't agree with that at all.
Well-
It has something to do with the city and its employees. And the
Exactly.
council also represents them as well. And I'm gonna, anybody that comes to me with any question, I'm gonna bring up to the council, and I'm gonna bring it up to get an answer from them, from city staff. So you've made your point known. You're absolutely right. I think what I'll do is I'd like to put it on the next agenda. I'll have the workers come in so you guys can be well informed, and if you vote it down that night, then it can be done. At least it's done. It's this languishing that's keeping them and keeping me, and to be very honest with you, as an elected official in this town, I think I have the right to bring something to the city administrator who works at the behest of the council. So, and that's exactly what I did.
I think
I
you're-
heard what you said. I got it. So let's put it on the agenda and let's get a vote. I think that's only fair.
Mike, can you ask Scott Riggs to be here for that thing? 'Cause he may have a different opinion on this.
If that's the council's request.
Okay, now, the question is, do we want it to, personally, I would like to do it in a budget workshop, or not a budget workshop, but our workshop of, that we're going to set priorities, to kind of put a priority on this. And that would be my preference, rather than call people in and make a decision to me, because I don't have any information on it.
I think you should hear that information. I agree.
But I don't want to hear the information.
How can you make a decision on priorities if you don't hear their side of the story? Or what they're looking for the...
Because I don't think that they should be involved in this. That's a situation between Mike and the employees, not the council. Am I right or am I not right, Mike?
What we're wrestling with is a policy choice on how we deal with the issue of overtime. Trying to answer the question is, I can bring a policy in next week at the next meeting that changes the policy and the practice of what we've done, where we have followed the Fair Labor Standards Act. To change that is very easy. However, if you do, there's some economic consequences that go with that. In the discussion that I've had with Sean, and it has drug out longer because the extensive amount of trying to give an answer is, what is everybody else doing, is not easily answered by just simply making a phone call or looking at a few documents. It's been much more extensive, and in trying to do my regular day-to-day duties, as well as this as a special project, besides all the other things that you'll see that are on the list that you want us to try to address and take care of, hasn't given me sufficient hours to be able to do that. And so I'm unable to deliver the answer as to just exactly how is everybody else dealing with it, because in trying to take a look at what are the neighbors around us or what are the cities doing around us, and we identified ones that are in close proximity, is that you've got in those 9 neighboring communities There's upwards of about 11 union contracts and about 9 personnel policies. And so to try to take on the topic and how it impacts the city isn't as simple as just giving you the policy change here and don't include this or don't include that. And as it relates to the payment of overtime or whether you create callback time or any of those answers. So I can't give you a tabular format of what is everybody else doing because the answers aren't simply in the documents that I've set out to take a look at, which have been upwards of about 21 different documents to try to begin to bring and develop an answer for the council. And so Sean's correct is that in taking a look at it is that I wasn't doing this just for Councilmember Ryan. I was trying to do it because the employees had a concern about what it is, and knowing that whether there's a union or not, we'd have to be looking at the same data. I tried to begin study efforts to try to gather that data and be able to bring back an answer as what does it look like in all those areas. If you pick one or two cities, I can give you a pretty easy answer of what they're doing. But in trying to take a look at what's going on in the neighborhood around us, it's much more complicated because it gets into a lot of definitional issues of what is the work week and how do different people handle that. And when you pay overtime, are you compliant with the federal law, or are you much more liberal than what you do in that? And so I can't easily gain all of those answers without a much more extensive review of the documents that I've been trying to evaluate. So I have not produced it as quick as I thought I might be able to. It's just been a more encompassing timing project than I thought it might be.
I think we should discuss it at our list of priorities because I think it's going to open up some other issues that we'll have to address at the same time, like personnel policy updates, and to fit where that priority is for staff.
So you said you're ready, Mike, for that?
Yeah, the staff and I have been working
Okay.
trying to put together the summary of the issues from Public Works, Public Safety, Planning and Zoning, and the list of all the things that we have with some brief explanation so that we can begin to have that updated review with you.
Okay, I'd recommend that. Our next meeting is March 5th. Can we plan to do it after that meeting? Spend an hour or so? Is that, or no?
I think you'll find that there may be more time than maybe an hour that might go in.
Do we want to do a special day, a special workshop day?
I would recommend that. I think in listening to the department heads answer any questions or get clarification,
Okay.
some of those things, I don't know that there's going to be enough time after a regular meeting to
Okay, so what does everyone's schedule look like for the next few weeks?
We do it like another Monday. That's not a council meeting.
So,
Well,
the 12th? How's everyone's schedule look for the 12th?
it works for me.
I'm available.
What?
I'm available.
Okay, well, let's tentatively schedule for March 12th at 6 o'clock and council chambers. Goal setting workshop. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Sean, you got anything else?
No, that's it.
David?
I've got two issues, two meetings. There was a meeting of the Cedar Lake Area Water and Sanitary Sewer District on Wednesday, February 7th. Excuse me. Amy had asked about inquiring with them about updating their contract between the city and the district. It was pretty definite no. Our contract is working just fine. We don't want to stir up the pot anymore. Things have been going okay between the city and us. Let's not create any issues, period. End of discussion. So they're not interested in.
We're all members there.
Yeah, no, there were two that were missing. One who was new, probably wouldn't have had a stake in it. The other one was a long-term
So was the
member.
county was there too?
Everybody was there except those two. One lived on the, I think, the east side of the lake, the other one lived on the west side of the lake. If the one that lived on the east side had been there, I'd have probably gotten something thrown at me.
Okay.
So, that was it. Oh, and the other thing that happened there is the district now has a website. If you want to go to it, it is www.cedarlakearea.swwd.org. The other was a meeting of the New Prague Area Community Center, and that was a week ago yesterday, Monday the 12th. The board had voted to bring in something called a live barn camera system. Now what this system will do is, I believe it has 3 cameras embedded in a small box that records what's going on the rink whenever it's turned on. They want it for practices, they want it for games. It's not something that the community center is buying. The company that has this camera system is putting it up at their own risk, and they are selling time slots for it. So that if I, as a parent, wants to purchase this for X number of dollars per month, I can turn that on and watch the team that my kids play on at leisure. There are times when the thing is closed, when the center is closed, that system's off. It's controlled by the manager of the center. Everybody there seemed to be very enthused about it. They thought it was a good deal. There was one other one that was much more expensive, but they didn't feel it was any better than this live barn one. There's a number of communities around the area that has it. I didn't write all those down, but I believe Lesueur is one of them. And they were fairly impressed with it. The other issue that was on the agenda was an update on a new rink. And they had invited Tim Dittburner, and I think the other guy's name was Vaughn Dirks. And Vaughn is an individual that, as I understand it, is part of the school's architectural consultants. They have formed a group, or a subcommittee, I should say, that is exploring the possibility of another rink. They are very serious about it, and they want to meet with the council sometime in the coming months. They thought probably in, I have here, I think April, or is it May? No, May. That they would be coming before us with what they think will be their proposal. As I understand it, they're not asking for any money, because I told them that A, there probably isn't going to be any, and 2, not everybody on the council believes that there's a need for it. They all were kind of shocked that I would say that, the latter part.
They don't know you, did they?
I guess they don't. But at any rate, I tend to think that there is a need, and Tim Dittburner kind of thought, yeah, there's a need. Why don't they see this? But at any rate, in the Learn to Skate program this year, there's 80 to 100 kids. I don't know their age group, but that's a lot more than I think they've ever had. So they're pretty convinced that in the foreseeable future, they are going to need another rink. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maggie?
Nothing?
Amy?
No, I have nothing.
Aren't you going to report on the fundraiser?
The fundraiser had an amazing turnout. $25,000 was raised in one day, so a little step towards building the memorial. So thank you to all the businesses and people that donated and came and bought tickets, and we're working on planning the next event. Except the committee moved their meetings to Monday nights. So I'm having a hard time making both meetings, but I'll keep updated.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything, so I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Dave Brusick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you, everyone.